Welcome back. Today I have Liz Kislik here to talk about leadership. Liz is a management consultant and executive coach, a frequent contributor to the Harvard Business Review and Forbes, and has delivered a TEDx on why there's so much conflict at work and what you can do to fix it. Her specialty is developing high-performing leaders in workforces, and she helps family-run businesses, national nonprofits, and Fortune 500 companies like American Express, Girl Scouts, Staples, Janssen Pharmaceuticals, and Highlights for Children solve their thorniest problems. She has taught at Hofstra University and New York University and has presented multiple highly rated appearances for the World Business and Executive Coaching Summit, the world's largest online summit for executive coaches, as well as the Hearst Women's Forum and Women in Optics. And we're so glad to have her join us today. Liz, welcome.
Thanks, Marie. I'm really happy to be with you.
Yeah, so I think in these days, leadership is the most important thing in any crisis. Good leaders rise and they're never forgotten for it, right? So what do leaders need in this time and in any crisis to be effective?
Okay, that's a big question. So the first thing is that leaders need to lead themselves. That's something we can all work to do, and it's something that leaders need to be particularly conscious of because self-management, self-care, making sure you're in good enough shape to deal with everybody else who is looking to you, relying on you, waiting for you. The first thing is to take care of yourself and make sure you're solid and grounded.
I love that. It's the, put the mask on yourself before you help your kids, right?
Exactly.
So once we've taken care of ourselves, and I know that could take many forms, right? It's taking care of your eating as well as, your mental health and your fitness and everything like that. How can they take care of others?
So I just want to add something to what you just said, if I may.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because the self-care of the leader as a person is actually a little different from the self-care of the leader as a leader. And they have to be thinking all the time about their thinking. So it's not just the stuff we all say we have to, get more sleep and get your exercise and all of that. And we need all of that, and every leader needs all of that. But it is also, am I here? Am I fresh enough? Do I need to remove myself for a little bit? One of the most valuable things a leader can do is know when they need a break, when they need to remove themselves from a circumstance where they are not on point, as opposed to deteriorating in front of others. I mean, when you're, confined at home, if you have a little hissy fit in front of your loved one's roommate, whatever, they've seen you a little off before.
Right.
And that can be forgiven. Your people may forgive you as a leader, but you might be doing damage that you don't need to do if you keep a hold of yourself and know when you're on and when you're off and when you need to back away. So the kind of, there are some leaders who do what I call heroics.
Okay.
Always on, rushing to the scene, rolling up their sleeves, and that is valuable and wonderful and should be done in, sounds so contrary, but done in a kind of measured and deliberate way. Because if you are too much throwing yourself on everything, you're actually not even leaving room for your people to do their best. They will fall back and think, well, Joe's going to handle it.
He's got it. Yeah.
Go ahead, baby, just go. And then they become passive, and the leader can exhaust themselves by trying to drag everybody with them through the heroics, instead of saying, we're all in this, how can we all bring our best?
That's really interesting. And certainly I can think of leaders that I've worked with and worked under who do that, to various degrees. What are some tools that a leader who does, that's their instinct, right? To save everybody, to go in and be like, I've got this, we're fine. What are some tools that they can use to, know when to step back, or maybe encourage their people to be a leader?
The easiest thing, although for some people this is actually hard to do, is to make sure that there are people on your team who will tell you, because they will see the signs before you will recognize them.
Right.
You will just think, oh, I'm charged up, I'm going.
Yep.
And they will know, oh, Liz is tiring just a little bit. She, we all have tells.
Right.
And they'll know. So have trusted advisors in the people who report to you, in the same way that often when I'm doing a talk, I will ask somebody to be a timekeeper for me, because I know I can't rely on myself. If I'm on a roll, I may not realize that it's time to open the floor for questions.
Right.
We all need a partner, at least one, in whatever we're doing. So the best tool is somebody who will keep an eye on you. That's first. But the second thing is just to know your own danger signs, whether they're habits of speech or little physical things. I know somebody who, when he starts getting tired, he doesn't realize this, but he paws his hand through his hair. Okay? And the more tired or more stressed he gets, the more likely he is to do it. That's why I'm saying people who watch you will know. But if you learn what your own habits are,
right.
Some people start banging their pen on the table. Anything that says, I'm impatient, I'm not able to be open, most of those things you feel in your body first.
Right.
So notice what your body is doing, and it will give you signals. If your shoulders are up in your ears, well, we're all that way all the time. Actually,
right.
Anybody who's watching right now, the best thing you can do is exhale and drop your shoulders. I just did mine.
Yep. Same.
Marie, you can do yours. That's, the first thing. Just ground yourself, feel your feet in your shoes, lengthen. Know that your body is there to support you. If your body is tired, give everybody a break. Everybody's tired.
Yeah. Wow. So it sounds like the most important thing for a leader is to be self-aware.
That's the first thing. And then self-regulating.
Right. And also have trust in their people to regulate them and say, have at least one person to be able to say, hey, I think you're tired right now, right?
Yes.
Time for a break.
Right.
Or let us handle it, or whatever.
That's right. That's right. And a tip for people who have leaders, work with leaders, you don't necessarily have to point out that they're tired right now. Say the equivalent of, boss, I think we could all use a break.
Yeah.
Some people just want to be the one who saves the day. And if you tell them they're tired, they have to prove they're not.
Right.
So know your audience.
Yep. Yeah, I know I'm susceptible to that, to being like, no, I'm not tired. What are you talking about?
Right.
That's a human thing to do.
Do it. Right.
Awesome.
Yes. So human, all of us.
Yeah. So what else can we be doing as people who lead others, and what can we do for our people?
Good. So I think there are two kinds of knowledge that you have to keep at the forefront of your mind all the time in a crisis. And one kind has to do with your big purpose, values, aims, goals. The why are we here questions. And to be aware of those all the time. We can talk more about that if you want. But if you know why you're there, you're more likely to make decent decisions in the moment than if you are not thinking about the big picture and only thinking about the small part of the crisis in front of you. because right now we don't know how long this is going to go on.
Yeah.
We don't know how bad it's
Yeah.
going to get. And so we can get caught up in a very current detail and lose sight of the big picture. And that may mean you decide the detail the wrong way. The second kind of general knowledge is to actually really know your people. And this falls into the category of everything that is planning ahead, whether that's saving a little cash, knowing that you have influencers who can work on your behalf for your customers. It's the kinds of things you need to have invested in before, but if you have to work on them now, work on them now. Knowing your people means you know which of the things you're going to do and say will be the most useful, or how to get the most traction. When you don't know your people, you're more likely to treat them all the same. And there's some of that you have to do because they are a workforce, they are a team. But what you don't personalize often gets lost, because particularly in crisis, people's brains are in so many places at once. They need to know you're talking to them specifically, not others. They need to know you're asking them for something, and they need to feel that relationship that is both collective and personal with the leader.
I love that. I love that. That's a really delicate balance to strike, you know.
Horrifying.
You know, because you also have to know when to speak to the group, know when to speak to the person, know when to make them feel seen, you know when to make the group feel addressed. That's a tall order, right?
Yeah.
Especially in a crisis.
Correct. But that's why, because there will be other crises after this one.
Of course, yeah.
Invest in that all the time, because there's also the person who doesn't like to be noticed, and you have to know how much to leave them alone to get their best. It's tricky. It is a delicate balance, as you say. And you have to be ready not only to play with that balance, but more than ever, when you get it wrong, to acknowledge it. Not to dwell. Not to self-flagellate, not to make a big fuss in front of people, but to call out that you made that mistake. Oh, I'm sorry, Marie. That wasn't what I meant, or I got that wrong. Please forgive it. Please forgive me. Can we now turn back to whatever we're doing? So it's not making a big fuss, because then the big fuss is about you. But it's acknowledging it so they know. Most mature people will literally package up, literally is wrong, will figuratively but strongly package up their hurts and hold them in abeyance when they know it's important to do that.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. And I think that, even though it sounds, on the surface of it, it sounds really simple, right? I got this wrong. Please forgive me. Can we move on?
Right.
How many people don't say that, right? Especially in a time where it's crazy like this, and emotions are running high, and everybody's beating themselves up for this, that, and the other thing, and businesses are in trouble in various ways, right? It's really hard to stop and say, hey, I got this wrong. I know you don't work well this way, whatever the case is, and I forgot that, forgive me. And what a valuable reminder, right? That we all have to do that sometimes.
And if you don't do it right at the moment, you can still do it. This is one of the things about communicating in a crisis. You can never do it enough. And also you can go back. In that way, it's like communication at any time. You want to get it right. So you plan, and you're careful, and you're thoughtful. So long as we're not dead, you can go back and work on it. And the value of that, an apology is good anytime. So even if it's not in the middle of the meeting, at the end of the meeting, oh, Steve, could you wait for just one more minute? And everybody else goes off screen and you still have Steve and you just apologize and move on. Or if maybe you didn't even realize until you were thinking through the meeting, afterward, have another call, another Zoom, send a note on Slack, just whatever it is, whatever, just don't neglect it. Don't think I should have done it then. Now it doesn't make sense. If there's something broken in a relationship, just get to it. And if they say, oh, I didn't even notice, say, okay, good, let's go on.
Right.
That's fine. But don't leave it that there's that open receptor with the other person just hanging open.
Right. That's excellent advice. That's it's something that I think everybody needs to know all the time, but especially now, because what if that receptor, even if they're not aware of it, great, right? But if that receptor is there, it can fester. It can turn into something else. And then next time they're, who knows what Steve is going to do. Maybe he feels like, well, I just don't have to work as hard, or, she doesn't care about me, or whatever the case is.
Right.
So, of course, we know that communicating is especially important right now. And you said something that I love, which is you can't do it too often.
Yes.
Yes. What do we need to be communicating in this time? How much should we keep people in the loop for, crisis stuff?
Okay, this is really tough.
Mm-hmm.
In general, you have to do what feels like exhaustive over communication to have a hope of being heard. In general, you have to communicate to your people on every channel you've got and then make some up. You have, because, there are some people who don't read the emails. There are other people, we all know them. They read the email, or they open the email, it's on the screen, and their eyes pass over it.
Right,
they say,
I
read the email. But you can tell because they only respond to your first 2 questions, and there were 4.
Yeah.
There's something where they don't really get it. This is true in every all hands meeting. On Zoom with the big screen, and you're looking at everybody, and they're paying attention to something else that isn't you.
Right.
They're looking at their own little picture. We are so unbelievably distractible unless we hear danger. Then we crystallize and focus, but then we're so narrow focused, we don't hear the whole thing. So they're never really hearing you completely.
Right.
And that's why you need to message, which, now that I've said that, I want to say it a different way, which is more like sonar. And maybe now is not the best time to talk about bats, but it's like you want to send a... I'm not sure what the science is.
It's a good metaphor.
Coronavirus really came from there.
Right.
But you want to send a signal out and check what the signal is coming back, and send a signal out and check. So what you really want is dialogue all the time, which of course there's no time for, but that's the best, because you want to put out the important things they need to know and check to see what they got. Different ones get different things.
Gotcha.
And if you are a senior leader, not only do you want to see what they got, you want to check, if it is at all possible, what they are planning to convey to their troops. I can't tell you how often, how painfully a CEO, an owner, a president makes a wonderful declaration.
Right.
And it completely gets lost between the next level and the folks further down. Completely gets lost.
Yeah.
And everybody who's separated from the primary message, they make crap up.
Yeah.
Their brain will do that automatically. It is not based on intent.
Right, right.
They will fill in the gaps and make up a story based on what they already know. So if your words, your language, your points are not being absorbed and then carefully transferred, the people who are 1 off, 2 off, 3 off from you, they are not getting the message. You can actually be confident that they're not getting the accurate, complete message.
Wow. It reminds me of, I remember in elementary school and sleepovers, we used to play telephone.
Oh,
Right.
exactly. You got it.
Where one person makes up a message and then you go around the table, and by the time it gets to the last person, it's a completely different thing. It's hilarious. But, I'm thinking of the Fortune 500 companies that you work with that have literally thousands of people. Right. So the CEO says something, the managers say something, the senior vice president says something else, the managers say this, the workers say this, and then the data entry specialists at the very bottom have this message that's just completely wrong.
Right.
And on a harmful level in a case like this.
It can be. And that's not just, megacorp land.
Yeah.
That's family businesses where even to family members, it gets lost in translation.
Mm-hmm.
That's, small companies that are starting up and are used to doing a daily huddle or a daily stand-up, and now they don't have that anymore. So that mesh of we all know what's going on, and it doesn't really matter if we're not 100% because we reconnect tomorrow morning.
Right.
That's part of where you want to go. So I do, in this time, encourage some kind of remote daily meeting, whether it's a virtual coffee or a stand-up, or it doesn't matter what you call it, but there's some kind of touching base.
Yeah, every day.
How are we doing? What do we need to do today? Are we on point? Did we lose anything yesterday? And what's our big picture? So that everybody still knows what hill we're trying to take.
Yep.
Big picture, small picture, every day. And that goes back to, you had asked me, what are the things you need to be communicating? So I didn't want to lose that.
Yeah.
So like what I just said, it is always a reminder of who are we serving or why are we here? Because everybody should have that every day anyway. You want that inculcated just in an intense kind of way. And then what are we facing now? So some of that is, how bad is it?
Right.
That's the hard stuff. How much do you tell them about how bad it really is? In general, so we have an example. Here we are in New York. Governor Cuomo has done a superb job of, first of all, being real.
Right.
And those of us who are New Yorkers know that he is being real, and he's being real in his best way.
Yeah, oh, absolutely.
Because he also has a, like all the rest of us, he has a not so best way. When things are a little better, he can actually get a little squirrely.
Yeah.
But right now, he has been absolutely fantastic because he talks about the data. He talks about what the ramifications are likely to be. He makes it real so that every person can see themselves in it. And he says what he needs from you. Whoever you are, he says what he needs from the president. He says what he needs from the medical community. He says what he needs from the citizens. So it is a combination of a reality check and a kind of charge. Here is your charge for now. Coupled with a fantastic personal brand of a little bit of humor, a lot of can do, we are New Yorkers, and this kind of optimism. It will be terrible and we know we will get through it. so I'm counting on you.
Yeah.
That kind of combination is just fantastic. You know what's another wonderful, while people are at home, I mean, I feel busier than ever,
Oh,
actually.
totally.
But there are many people who cannot do a lot of their work while they're working remotely, or there are people who are, unfortunately, I'm so sorry for it, furloughed or laid off or in some other way not connected to their work. And some of them are volunteering and others have personal responsibilities. But if you are able to watch a movie, a terrific movie is a movie called Glory.
Okay.
It's a Civil War movie. I haven't thought about this in a long time, with Matthew Broderick
Oh,
as
yeah.
this young Boston blue blood who commands the first African American troop, cadre, regiment. That's probably the
Yeah.
word. His learning on the job, his attention to his men, his putting the success of their work ahead of his own personal success. There are a lot of lessons in there for anybody who is responsible for someone else, whether you are a frontline supervisor or an owner CEO type.
I love that. So Glory, everybody watch Glory. I've been using the example of Cuomo all week, because I gotta say, love him or hate him, because you're right, he hasn't always been the best, right? Love him or hate him, right now he is doing he's doing New York right, and he's going to be remembered for that. People will remember. I mean, people are saying Cuomo for president now.
Yes.
Which is like, I was shocked when I first heard that. I was like, really? And then I was like, oh, right. This is kind of like Mayor Giuliani and 9/11, where he did New York right. And people remembered him for that. Right.
Yes.
And forget everything else. People remember you in this time. They remember what you do.
That's right. There are some people who are best in a crisis. That doesn't mean they're great at everything.
Right.
There are other people who are not as good in a crisis, but if they have the right leadership, can be as good as they need to be. And that's what you want to call forth from everybody. It is getting the best of their capacity. And if through good leadership, you can increase their capacity, then you have the benefit of that.
I love that. So we're going to be giving a lot of bad news as leaders these days. How do you do it? How much bad news is appropriate to communicate? And how do you discern that?
Okay. So Cuomo is giving a lot of bad news. One of the things that he has balanced really well, and that is very hard, is just like what I talked about in the apology situation, and that is being careful not to focus on your own experience of the bad news. As the leader, you can acknowledge that you have skin in the game. One of my clients just took pay cuts across the board.
Wow.
CEO down to frontline customer service person. You don't talk about how bad that's going to be for you.
Right.
You say, we're all in this together. I'm experiencing it too. But you express your concern for others.
For them.
You try to provide tools for others for how to deal with what supports we have for you, those kinds of things. So that's one thing. Second thing is, if possible, and this goes back to the idea that whoever your lieutenants are, the people you trust, you have to have others ready who will share and convey the right messages. So you want your trusted associates to know the bad news a fraction of a minute sooner than everybody else so that they are already prepared.
Gotcha.
What's the preparation? Everybody. First of all, they'll hear your message wrong because they'll hear it, this one wrong, the same as everything gets heard wrong.
Right.
But they will all have questions about how this affects them personally. Sometimes the initial announcement is not the right venue for all the questions. You need breakout Zoom rooms. Okay. Folks, I have to give you some bad news now. As soon as I'm finished, you're all going to go to your team rooms so that you can speak more directly and personally with your HR business partners, your supervisor, whoever it is, who has already been prepared. That kind of thing is very, very important. And it just shows why you need everybody in the organization to be good.
I love that.
You need them all to be good at this because it's a tough time, and whoever the weakest link is creates a problem for everybody in their chain.
Sure.
You know, going down.
Right.
As you are giving the challenging news, you need to listen for what's going on so that you can manage it. But whatever the news is, and this is not easy, and I can't even give a general rule for how to do it because you have to figure it out for your situation. You have to look at how does the bad thing play into, work with whatever our large purpose and goals are. Maybe we're taking these pay cuts now to conserve cash now so that we know we can continue past not only the X number of weeks the federal government has said and the Y number of weeks that our governor has said, but can take us for at least 6 months so that we know we can continue to serve our public. We'll all be limping a little bit, but we can continue to serve. Tie what is negative back to why you need to do it.
So it sounds like that piece of information is really important. It sounds like hearing that we're doing this because
yes,
X, Y, we can continue for 6 months this way, or we can keep you on. Otherwise we have to fire people, or whatever the case is. It sounds like that actually really, really matters.
Yes. Even if it's that we have to do that now as a personal stringency so we can afford to pay for more inventory.
Yeah.
To be able to supply, whoever needs supplying, school children, whatever. If there is a reason that is tied to your mission, as much as people are worried about their individual hurt, they feel better about it than if they just hear, we've got to furlough you for 4 weeks and we hope to bring you back then. If they hear, this is a painful thing, we're so sorry, we will work on your individual circumstances right after this meeting. We need to do this furlough so that we can continue as an entity and therefore come back as soon as possible.
Right.
And we have plans for how we're going to do that. And that's important. Not just we're going to furlough you and let you sit at home and stew.
Right.
Okay, and make up your own stuff again. We have plans and we're going to talk about those. And it's very useful for the main leader to highlight the 3 major points. And now your team leader is going to talk to you about the specifics.
I love that. I think that's so useful because I feel like, I know when I've had to deliver bad news, right? Like my instinct is to say, okay, well, I've given you the bad news. Now let me give you time to go process that, you know what I mean? And ask me your questions, right? And it's easy to do that. It's easy for people to say, well, everybody's going to be mad at me or everybody's going to be upset. Let me give them time to process, right? But it sounds like it's almost more constructive, not almost more, it is more constructive to put a structure in place right away. This way, people don't have time to, come up with their own story about it or, feel that they were, left in the lurch or fired or whatever the case is when that wasn't true.
Right. It's much less like dumping. Okay.
Yeah.
It says you have bothered to think it through. And the other thing, now you're right about the questions and how important those questions are.
Right.
There are people who will not ask their question in front of anybody else. There are people who will not even think of what their question is. They're like the deer in the headlights.
Right.
And they are just thinking, oh no, oh no, oh no, oh no. And they can't actually process, and it takes them a half a day. So whatever your Zoom room process was, your group chats, any of that, you need to tell them both in the big leader conversation and in all the small groups. We will be taking your questions afterward. Here's how you get back to us with more questions. So you give them a mechanism.
Mm.
And then over the next couple of days, you or the right people in the organization go back to them multiple times.
Mm.
What else is on your mind? Are there ways we can help you now? And keep bringing the questions from the outer edges in and the answers out. Because one worried person who couldn't think of what was bothering them for 2 days will ask a question, the answer to which is meaningful for everyone.
Right. That's brilliant advice.
Hard
yeah,
to do.
difficult. And especially in this time, because we're also, as leaders, we also are dealing with our own thing. Right. So this is a lot to remember and a lot to do. And I feel like, it sounds like this is the right way to do it. If you're a mom and pop shop, if you're, a family owned business, if you're Fortune 500, if you're like, your team is 3 people, even this is the right way to do it. It's just, you scale it. Right.
That's that. And you know what's crazy? Even works for you as an individual, because sometimes we can't think of what our own questions are. And you can say to yourself, that's okay, honey. It's going to come to you. I wouldn't say that, in the workplace, but you want to be soothing and encouraging as much as you can, because our brains are just firing too much. So that's okay. I know you're going to think of it later. And when you think of it, we're going to figure it out. And talk to yourself. My kids get so aggravated when I do this, but it's really helpful. Talk to yourself almost like you're another person. Because then you can externalize some of your processing. It helps get you out of, that doom loop.
Oh, interesting. So that actually does help, because you're, yeah, oh, wow. Okay.
Talking to yourself in second person and talking about yourself in third person. Yes, there's this whole narcissistic thing about it. That is true. But there is also a cognitive processing thing. It can feel more helpful if you talk about yourself in the third person when you're really stressed. I never remember that myself, but I do talk to myself in the second person.
Right. So like, don't worry, Liz, you'll be thinking about this.
Yes.
You'll come up with your questions in 2 days.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
and literally that.
Then we will handle. That's the thing. We will figure it out. Mm-hmm. And as much as possible, we will figure it out together. And we will get back to you. And here's who you call, and here's who you call in the normal course, and here's who you call in an emergency. Because one of the things a leader has to convey is, we know some of you may have people who are ill in your family,
Mm-hmm.
may fall ill yourselves. We want to know that, as strapped as we are. at a minimum, even if there is no money and there are no resources and there is no help, just being able to say, I'm so sorry, I care about you, I'm so worried for you. People need to hear that.
Oh yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's amazing, even just hearing that, right? Even just hearing leaders, there's been a lot written in Harvard Business Review in recent days and weeks about this, right? Like, make sure you talk to your employees that are sick, and what do you do and everything, because so many leaders handle that badly. They handle grief, they handle illness really, really badly. I mean, I've been in work situations where I've just seen it go so terribly.
Yes.
And it's, and of course we're human, and not all humans can deal with this stuff well, right?
Yes.
So, but we, as you can't afford that if you're managing people.
No, and to go back to the leaders thinking, a couple of things there. One is, please remember that the way you are thinking is not how everybody else is thinking. Yes, we are all alike in terms of we all have a shared humanity, but because you have taken on certain responsibilities for a business at large, for an organization, you actually are thinking in different ways from someone who is following directions, even if they know how to work independently. And the things that are bothersome to them, worrisome to them, you may have already processed for yourself and you don't even realize you've processed. So you don't think about how much they need to process it and hear it.
Right.
Always know that your thoughts are not their thoughts. They are not agreeing with you. They have other things going on, and you have to take them as they are. That's number one. And number two, in stuff like this, there is no one and done. There's nothing. Even the things that look like they're going right, go back and review them. That's why the daily stand-up mode, what happened yesterday? Are we on track? Did we lose our way? Where are we off course? Where do we need to? Recalibrating all the time is really important. It is so easy to get off course because there's the huge problem, and then there's some stupid little problem that happens every day, no matter what, and you get caught up in that, and you forget what you're supposed to do. So they're not you, you're not them, and show up all the time.
I love it. I love it. What else do we have to be doing in this time? From what other advice are you giving to your leaders now?
I think one of the things that I've seen that I'm just so impressed with how some of the leaders I work with are dealing with things. The constant stream of information, the clarity. Oh, one thing I left out. Talk about what's good.
Yeah.
Who are the customers we've helped? Even how are our furloughed or now part-time people, how are they volunteering in their community? Tell the good news and the good stories so that the bad news just is not completely drowning everybody. That can be really valuable as another form of communication.
I love that.
Be personal. Anybody you would interact with in the normal course, when they're working remotely and you have so many things on your to-do list, it's easy not to check in with them. Check in with them. If you have, one of the things that I encourage some of my clients to do, and they are so happy with it, it's such a small thing.
Yeah.
Once a week at 4:30, whatever time, have a virtual happy hour. You don't have to drink.
Right.
But it is a chance to be together that is not exclusively focused on the work. Work may come up, but it is not the purpose. It is the chance to be together and take everybody's temperature in a relationship sense.
I love that.
and know a little of what they're dealing with. I mean, people are going nuts
Yeah.
with
Yeah.
4 small children at home and the aged parent who is not doing well, who they can't see, and people are carrying a lot of burden. And being human with them is so valuable for the leader. Sometimes it's best to put it on your calendar.
Yep.
Have the check-ins. That really helps. And convey values all the time. Point out, pardon me, when people are operating within our norms and better, or that's the ABC company way.
Right, right.
Be proud of your people. Be proud of and share your customer stories. Anything that says what we are doing matters in the world gives people strength to go on in these terrible conditions.
Yeah. I love that you suggested a virtual happy hour. You know, we've been seeing them pop up in our industry, right? Because we've already been living on Zoom,
Right.
You know, and in our world of online, you know, remote working and business ownership and everything like that, we've been doing this. And so people kind of just did it, you know.
Right.
Our mutual contact, Robbie Samuels, he's kind of pivoted his business, and now
he's the king.
He runs virtual happy hours and he actually will be running hours because he, you know, he does things like pipe music in and do all this stuff to signal
so
the beginning
great.
of meetings and the ends of meetings and everything. But I love that that is something valuable even for, you know, the big company that's suddenly gone virtual, you know, because we don't think about it, but if you have that culture of being in the room together, there's water cooler stuff, there's people go to lunch together, there's all that stuff. So like we still need that. We still need to be in contact and be human, and, you know, people say good morning to each other and how are you doing, and, you know.
Yes.
So
yes. And from a leader's perspective, you want to know. It's those unknowns that are of danger to your mission.
Mm-hmm.
It is better to know how they are, even though you then have to go and air yourself out and clear your aura and figure out how not to be so burdened by the pain of your people that you can't function. And that's a serious thing.
Yeah. Yep.
But you need to know, because part of your responsibility is to help them. And you can't help them specifically enough if you don't know enough.
Mm-hmm. Amazing. How can people get in touch with you?
Thank you. My website is the best place. That's lizkislik.com. And not only can they find me there and contact me there, but I have so much stuff there, Marie, that might be useful now. There's a free ebook on dealing with conflict, interpersonal conflict, and some of the stuff in there, I wrote it for the work environment, but a lot of the techniques are good at home while you're stuck with people. So that might be good. And I've got loads of blogs and articles about delivering bad news and all of this leadership stuff. And also, of course, on LinkedIn, where I'm pumping out material all the time. And anybody wants to get connected, so happy to do that, because we all need to share how we're going to get through this and then what we're going to do after, because there are powerful lessons in every company about risk management and preparedness. And it seems to me that we can do better. And as Maya Angelou said, and I'm sure I won't quote it exactly right, but once you know better, then you have to do better. And so we'll all have a responsibility to share what we've learned through this.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, this, you know, I can't wait to hear how people got through this in 6 months or a year or whatever the case is. That's a really good point. And it gives me hope, you know?
Oh, yeah. Have to have that. Yep.
Any parting words of wisdom for leaders who might be delivering bad news or, you know, dealing with bad news themselves?
There is always something you can do. you may despair momentarily, but there is always something to do. And if you rally your people to you, that's heartening to you too.
Right.
I think of Rahm Emanuel, who worked in the Obama White House and then was the mayor of Chicago. And I cannot remember his exact quote, but he talked about there being opportunity in crisis and not wasting that.
Mm-hmm.
This is a time to think, okay, how can we do this better? How can we do this at all? But
Yeah.
how can we do this better?
Right.
And use that to build a better future. So I really, my takeaway is take heart, because we can be strong and it will be awful and we can get through it nonetheless.
I love it. I love it. And I think you're referring to the same quote that Leanne Davey wrote that article about and mentioned you in, right?
Yes.
The never waste a crisis.
Yes.
So yeah, read that article.
Yeah.
And you're mentioned in it, and you know that comes from her conversation with you.
That's up. So. She's got that up on LinkedIn.
Yep.
For anybody who's looking for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us.
So happy to be with you. I'm grateful for you, Marie.
I'm grateful for you. Thank you. Yeah, people really need to hear from you in these days. So keep writing and keep speaking, and we will get through this one way or another together.
We will. Looking forward to happy hour.
Yay.
Yay.
See you soon.
Okay.